Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now here's what we've got for you today. You might be one of the best prepared guests.
Oh, really?
We've had.
That surprised me. I did put a bit of thought into how I'm going to frame this, especially with the titles of your podcasts on Spotify and YouTube. I was like, I can see the kind of format. How am I going to try and fit into this?
Don't worry about trying to fit in. I never made the podcast if I tried worrying about fitting in. I've got a t-shirt that says, they said I don't fit in. Best compliment ever. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Today on the podcast, we're talking about creativity, passion, and the value of creative thought. We should all know by now that things like innovation and the things that we say we want, they are fueled by that creative muscle. Without creativity, there would be no new discoveries, no advancements, no progress, and change would not occur. In fact, a 2005 study found that most effective ways to foster innovation is to create an environment that supports and encourages creativity. So why do we struggle to do it when it comes to the emergency services? Is it because we claim to be steeped in tradition? Is it because we value discipline and the way it's always been done? We need to find ways to provide resources, support, and promote a culture of risk-taking and experimentation and encouraging collaboration and idea sharing. We work in silos. This doesn't help us. Things like the podcast is an area where we are easy to make mistakes. I get stuff wrong all the time. But through creative conversation, through safe exploration of thought, we find ourselves coming up with solutions. We share ideas. We, create a space where some of the incredible guests we have on can come and speak about this sort of stuff. So today we're going into creativity and how that manifests for this specific individual. As you're listening through today's episode, I want you to think about how creativity plays a role in your life. I want you to think about how much of yourself you're able to bring to work. I want you to think about how you seek personal development, how you have outlets for that creativity, whether, like today's guest, it is music, or whether engaging in creative activities can help you yourself develop new skills, broaden your horizon, learn about yourself. Having some sort of creative outlet requires you to use your brain in a new and different way. Helps us grow, learn, and find new approaches to so many other things in life as well. Studies have also shown that engaging in creative activities can reduce stress, improve mood, increase feelings of accomplishment and self-esteem, and also gives you an element of self-actualization, gives you empowerment, gives you control over something in your life. The podcast is an example for me. Yours might be music, painting, business, a side hustle that you've got. That creativity, that expression is a form of self-expression that can help you process and cope with your own emotions. Maybe this is something you want to consider doing more of as you move into the new year. Is this something you've always wanted to do? Is there something you've always wanted to make happen for you? Tickling that pickle of creativity can be the thing that maybe you're looking for. Today, speaking with Ryan, we're talking about music and how that contribution can also help develop other people than just yourself. Creativity plays a vital role in developing societies, teams, cultures within companies, organizations, and services just like ours. Creative ideas have a profound impact on the way we live and interact with the world. It helps us imagine new possibilities and push the boundaries of what is possible for us. We're facing so many problems in the emergency services these days. We need to have different ways to approach them. By practicing creativity, we can learn to approach problems and challenges in new and innovative ways to make better decisions. Creativity requires us to think outside the box and consider multiple solutions, which can be helpful when faced with complex or ambiguous problems, but only if we are willing to lean into it. So to bring the focus back down into today's conversation, we're speaking with Ryan Phillips, who's a firefighter in the UK Fire and Rescue Service. And on the 28th of December, the band he belongs to, known as Habilis, released their new song, Rise or Fall, and also a music video, which you can find in the notes to the podcast. For him, it's become the perfect way to merge the two important aspects of his life: his career in the fire and rescue services and his need for creativity, music, and collaboration with others. The music video follows Ryan on his journey to prepare for the British Firefighter Challenge. So I actually met Ryan last year as well. And in the video itself, you see him coached by his friend and singer Gavin. And there's a real sort of rocky Eye of the Tiger feeling to it. The video is sprinkled with loads of little comedy and homages to iconic movie moments. So go in the notes and have a look at it as well. Lyrically, the song is about the bond formed between athlete and coach whilst training for an important challenge. The two of us today, we discuss loads of similarities of being in a band and how that works in terms of teamwork, and the similarities with the fire service and how they contain unique, talented individuals, just like the fire and rescue services. Only if we harness this creativity, this ability for dedication, perseverance, thinking outside the box, different ways to approach something, can we really truly find answers to some of the complex problems that we are faced with today. We really have got to think about doing things differently, folks. One of my favourite quotes, and I think it was Einstein, although it may have been someone else, is that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So, as you listen through today, please think about how you embrace creativity in your life. Are you questioning things? Are you tilting your head to the side and looking at things from a different angle? Hope you enjoyed today's episode with Ryan. Please be sure to drop into the notes below, check out the episode links, check out our partners, and if you want to hear more from the podcast, if you want to look into our library of documents and episodes, be sure to go over and check out our Patreon page. For as little as £3 a month, you can support the continuation of the podcast. But without further ado, let's get in there with Ryan, and I will see you all on the other side. So what inspired you to do this video? Give us a bit of a background on why did you want to do it? Would you come on and share? What's this creativity aspect you have so much inside you? Because there is quite a rare few people that have creativity in the fire and rescue service, to be brutally honest. It always makes me laugh when the fire service says, be yourself. No, not like that. Don't do that. You know what I mean? So
it's always one of those core values, isn't it? Of like, tenacity and inspirational, and all those power words, phrases.
Let's circle back to that, because I want to talk to you about it. I want to ask you about inspirational in a minute, but give us some background.
So I joined the Retained in 2014, and it was by chance. I had a plumber come round my house, and we probably talked more than he actually measured up the bathroom for a quote. Which is kind of standard for me. I just talk to anyone and everyone about anything.
You should run a podcast.
I'm a big chatter.
You'd be great on a podcast. Well, you are on a podcast now, but I mean, you'd be great running a podcast.
It'd be fun to try. I've thought about it, but we'll see what happens. Need to get in a groove. So yeah, I'm chatting away to this plumber. I think his name's Dave. I can't remember his surname now, but
memorable bloke then.
I can picture his face very clearly. It's just a surname.
Very forgettable. Lovely guy.
We're getting chatting, and for some reason we come on to the subject of him being he's retired from the part-time, from the Retained, and I was kind of like, what do you mean part-time? I didn't know anything about the part-time system, the Retained or on-call, whatever you want to call it. And I told him that this is when I was 27, so when I was 21, I gave a very, very half-assed, the worst application imaginable to the whole time system.
Okay.
Of where I wasn't sure, I was 21, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And I literally remember thinking like, I don't know if I want to work night shifts and stuff like that. Which is laughable now, but at the time...
Luckily, I worked night shifts in a factory first, so I knew what real night shifts were, and then I saw what fire service night shifts were. I went, so not really night shifts.
Yeah.
Like, I thought we were talking about the same thing.
Yeah, likewise, in my mid-20s, I did some, 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. shifts, quite a lot of that.
Yeah.
So when I finally did get to where I am, I'm very grateful. So back to the plumber, Dave. and he tells me about the part-time system, and he's basically, just if you're interested, which I was, just go down and introduce yourself.
Why were you
on
interested?
Thursdays.
What were you doing at that time?
At the time, I was working just like a Joe job, is what I call them, which is probably an insult, really, because everyone does. It's a normal job. I was doing a normal job, so
what was it?
We've trapped my insult. I was a planner for like lorry routes.
Nice.
Although the routes were already established, so saying I was a planner is fucking up a bit. But I basically dispatched.
That's a glorified Google Maps operator.
Lorries and drivers, yeah. So the driver would come in. I would give him the details of where you got to go, what you got to collect. It drove me a bit mad, to be honest. It was very frustrating because I struggle with, and I struggle with this a little bit in the fire service as well, with things are inefficient. And it seems like in Britain we have the most inefficient way of doing deliveries of a lot of stuff, and
really
our drivers would drive up north for a company, collect something, so their trailer would be empty. It would go 2 hours up north, maybe more, pick something up, drive back down, deliver that, and then deliver it into London, and we're in Bedfordshire, and then drive back to Bedfordshire. So it's a lot of time. These trucks are empty, going everywhere, and I don't see why the system can be devised where they're full all the time. It's more efficient, especially as we're heading towards being more climate neutral and all that jazz.
I bet they'll change that though. I bet Amazon's algorithm the hell out of that. It
will. I mean,
imagine when drones come in.
That.
That's when I think is going to be the game changer.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we're seeing a lot of drone usage in the emergency services now, and it's growing. But you'll know when nationally they've unlocked that fly in public spaces thing, because the key indicator will be that constant hum of Amazon packages everywhere. It will be
crashing into people.
Yeah, well, it would just be a game changer. But I think the payloads are maximum like 5 kilos or something like that. And I'm sure I'm wrong when I'm saying that. But like for all your small packages, dropping off my makeup and things like that, perfect. Well, that's
it will be good. It will be a game changer. It'll be too convenient. The world will be too convenient.
That's where it always makes me smile. The guy that owns the UFC, what's his name?
The main man. Dana White.
Dana White. That's the guy. Yeah, where he's like, because everything's so easy and so soft now. You if you're even remotely a savage, life is just going to be so easy for you because you will just plow over people who have just gotten so sedentary, so incredibly lazy.
Well, that's why the Dagestanis are doing so well, isn't it?
Yeah, crushing the hell out of everybody. But also, that kind of echoes to me, and this is a strange analogy to overlay, but like you said, you had a job that you thought wasn't stimulating you, a job that sucked a little bit, a Joe job for a few years. I often think about people that enter the fire service whole time at 18, and they've never had a real job. I find even in their early 20s, they become like despondent, like, oh god, they're expecting us to do all of this stuff, and I'm like, have you had a real job, dude? Have you scraped out rotten mixers at 3 a.m? Have you worked on a building site? Have you filled a skip just for the hell of filling a skip? Have you dug a hole 2 meters deep and then told it needs to be another half a meter deep? No. What is wrong with you?
Those guys can be, or those guys and girls can be somewhat like the ones with the...
I don't find you get many girls like that, though.
Probably not, no.
I don't find they moan as much as guys.
The attitudes can be quite challenging because, like you said, you don't know what a rubbish job is until...
Well, they're the ones I get in trouble with because I let my passion deploy itself sometimes in a bit more too much passionate way.
Very diplomatically.
And then I catch myself out because I've said something silly because they just make my blood boil. But anyway, yeah, you're right. I'm just like, you just entitlement is just ridiculous, and anyway, we digress. But you got into a real job and then you wanted to come into the fire service. So you joined first on-call retained 27, is that right?
Yeah, to be fair, I carried on doing that job whilst I was I was part-time, and that company were very good to me. I could see that it was almost as if the managers there were like, you should be doing something like the fire service, and they were very supportive and very encouraging, especially one or two of them were allowed me to carry on working part-time and do that as well. Very encouraging. So yeah, big shout out to those guys. And yeah, got into the part-time and really just put my foot on the gas, I would suppose, although I don't know if my colleagues would agree with that. But for me personally, I embraced it 100%. I couldn't get enough of it. I wanted to be, I was on call all the time, and I was jumping on every course that I could. And those first 18 months or 2 years really, I just found myself developing massively from going to a guy who I would say had good common sense, but not massive practical skill, to now I know quite a bit about lots of different pieces, like the first aid and the trauma care, for example. Like, I think especially in the fire service, I don't know what it's like in other brigades, but in the one that I work for, it has there's an unenthusiasm around the first aid and trauma care kind of aspect, or traditionally there was. I think that's definitely changing.
Yeah,
but I've always seen it as
UK,
a massive,
unfortunately,
a massive bonus. Like, I mean, I feel now I could come across so many different scenarios in real life where someone might need help. And the reality of that is that there's not going to be many members of public who are going to be able to help as much as you can. So it's given me
I'd love the opportunity, and it just needs to be a union, fire service, NFC conversation that gives us the ability to upskill to paramedics if we want to. And I know people will say, we've got such a growing skill set, we struggle to stay on our own maintenance of competence, but paramedics an exaggeration. Maybe just what's the other ones called? The ones
EMT.
Yeah, EMT, emergency medical technicians.
Emergency medical technician.
Yeah, they're upskilling us to stuff like that. Now, the FREC is the latest iteration of the first aid, FPOS, IEC, and now we're doing FREC, and there's just new companies stamping their name on the same old thing, I think, but level 3s and level 5 FREC. But I don't know what that means in terms of the competency from an NHS medical practitioner. I don't know what the conversion is. Like, what is FREC 5 in comparison?
It's actually quite high. They have, I think it might be the EAC or ECA, Emergency Care Practitioner, Emergency Care Assistant. I think it might be like the ECA sort of level. It's surprisingly high because in my brigade, we did the secondment where we were assisting the ambulance service with driving, basically. And again, that was another massive opportunity for me to make the most of that experience of, well, what else can I learn? What else can I add to my skill set? And invaluable, it really was. It was such a great experience. And again, we were talking about night shifts. Those are some night shifts where you're on the go constantly. A lot of experience to be gained.
So paramedics level 6. So the QA level 5 diploma in First Response Emergency and Urgent Care, commonly known as FREC, is intended for those who have specific responsibility at work or in voluntary or community activities to provide pre-hospital care to patients requiring emergency care. FREC level 4 is the second certificate of a suite of qualifications leading to a technician level 5 diploma and level 6 paramedic. So level 5 is only one down from paramedic. I don't think that's right. My brother-in-law's a paramedic and he knows loads more than I do. Actually, I don't think he's just a paramedic. He's done loads of other stuff beyond that. But anyway, we digress down that rabbit hole. I think it doesn't seem like it's too much of a hop, skip and a jump then, away from us being able to at least contribute and, take some... And I know there's a union conversation. I know this is not the purpose of our discussion today, but I think we should look to continue to upskill ourselves. I think for those that are creative and have a insatiable desire for learning and development, gives them places to go, because you never complete firefighting. Some people will go, you should just focus on the core job. Yeah, but, it gets boring. to be honest with you. And you can always learn more, and but I think we'd be more useful to the community, and they'd be like, oh, it's the NHS's job. Well, NHS has got loads of money and not enough people. So I think, give a bit of it to us.
What are your personal thoughts and feelings on co-responding? I mean,
love it.
I would assume positive from what you've just said.
Yeah, I love it. Do it. 100%. Let's do it. I like the American model. Let's get another TRV, VRV, tactical response, smaller unit on a fire station that can respond to that, and then let's cross crew it, That's what I would like to do.
Yeah.
My personal opinion.
That would be great, I think.
More firefighters on stations.
I was
bigger watches. Come on, get over yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if it's a question of we've got too much to be good at as it is, then why
diversify?
In my opinion, we're doing a lot of community fire safety and fire safety and stuff.
I think we're going to be told to do more either way.
Truck.
Yeah. So if someone says, "What do you want to do?" and your options are laid in front of you, do you want to do more community fire safety? Do you want to put in handrails for people? Do you want to go around fitting whatever for people's, lifts for people to get out of bed? I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but if I'm given a choice, I'd rather go to emergency fire first aid calls.
I would say that we shouldn't be doing that. Why? No. For me, it doesn't make sense.
Just get skilled labourers in the community to do it.
A highly skilled person. Yeah. That is the job for... I have a neighbour who is a retired police officer, and he would honestly love a job like that. And I think that would be the perfect job for him. Chilled out, interacting with members of the community. I'll do the home fire safety visit. Perfect person for that role.
Give him an advanced CRB
why would
check
you send a
and
truck?
stick him out there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Why not?
I don't understand the logic of having highly skilled people and using them to stick up smoke alarms.
It's ridiculous.
Obviously, I understand that it's going to reduce fires and make people safer, but really that needs to be a specific team. And then that's the perfect counter for the corresponding argument of, well, we already do enough as it is, so take that aspect away and let's focus on being really good at...
Do you know what my frustration is as well? When people say, if my 7-year-old daughter's having a heart attack, I don't want some retard firefighter showing up. Well, he's going to anyway, because we carry, defibs on the trucks already. So the worst thing you're going to go to is cardiac arrest, and we already do that. So I don't understand what you think you're gaining by saying I don't want to do it, because you're already doing it. If you get to an RTC, ambulance is 2 hours away. Who do you think's doing the care? We're doing it. So just annoys me, because I think there's a pay enhancement opportunity.
I think the people that say that, I think it's more about like they personally have a bit of apprehension and fear with...
They just don't want to do it.
Not being confident at what
I joined to put out fires and cut up cars. Okay, then you don't like blood. Okay, fair enough. This is what I'm saying, though. Don't make it mandatory. Similar to driving. So driving is not mandatory. Not everybody has to drive. It is part of one of your NOSes, but not everyone has to do it, which I think is missed by a lot of services, because I think we're walking into an area where a lot of people won't want to do driving because you're actually risking your own license doing driving. I drove for ages before I became a watch manager, and actually I started again driving when I went to training, because you have to be able to move all the trucks. But I didn't have to drive anymore, so I basically gave it up. But a lot of crew and firefighters don't even want to. Either they want to wear BA all the time, or they're just like, man, well, I don't want to be a glorified lorry driver. Most of the time, if I ding a vehicle, it's my fault, it gets put on me, and I don't get paid anymore to do it. So it's like that. We don't enforce driving, which I think we should. And we don't enforce, if we were to do this, don't enforce it. Just to say, look, anybody on the watch that would like to, if we can get if we can get 4 people per watch, per station, as soon as you get that trigger, we will provide a resource to that station and we'll upscale its response capability. You don't have to do it, but if you want to do it, you can do it. And you will get X, I don't know, £1.50 extra an hour. Whatever, I don't know.
yeah, whatever the deal is, it just needs.
I think it'd be great. I'd love to do it. Anyway, we digress down that rabbit hole. Take me back to creativity.
I can't say enough positive about it, because I had a experience when the trial was going on. I went to. Well, this was immediately before I went full time, so this was in 2017, and one of the first calls that we had for co-responding was to go to a house that I recognised. I remember reading the tip sheet. I was like, "Oh, I know the street, house," and we're driving there. I was like, "Oh, it must be next door to my friends."
I thought you were going to say it's your ex-girlfriend.
A house that a house that I grew up in, you know. No, not my ex-girlfriend. So we're walking up to the door, and I'm like, "Oh, it's the actual house. It's not next door. It's that actual house that I used to like hang out in." And it turned out to he won't mind me saying this, because we talk about it quite frequently. It was one of my best friend's mum. She was having a cardiac arrest.
Wow.
And we got her back, and she made a fantastic recovery with the ambulance team. So we were second in attendance. There was a lone paramedic there with a rapid response vehicle, and we were doing compressions on her. She had all the right ticks, you know. So obviously, the majority of those scenarios don't end well for the patient or the casualty. No. But it just happened that her husband was a retired paramedic, so he witnessed the cardiac arrest and had started administering CPR. Then
I'm assuming they'd already paid the mortgage off.
Yeah, yeah.
He didn't go, "I think I'll give it a few minutes."
wait for the
Yeah, I'm trying to ring. No. What's the number again? 969 something. But no, anyway, he was there, so kicking ass, taking names.
Yeah. We then lone paramedic. Then we arrived. We were a crew of 3. Although it was very surreal for me. I'll never forget it. But we made a massive difference to her success rate, and then. It was maybe 10 minutes of the 3 of us plus the paramedic, and then ambulance arrived, air ambulance, and it was about 3 p.m. So she had all the cards like fell into place for her to give her like the best chance.
What roles did you guys and girls adopt at that? Because that's when I think to myself, people go, paramedic. Yeah, paramedics usually riding on their own. Yeah. You know how tiring it is to do this stuff. That's where I would see, like, we rock up, we crack on with the CPR. They monitor the SATs. They put in some drugs if they need to. They're smarter than us. They know more stuff. We can do the compressions, breathe in, check this thing. We can do all of that rubbish. You know, that's the easy. It's physically arduous, but it's, you know, you don't need technical competence really to do that. And we can provide people. Paramedics riding on their own. Jesus Christ, I say my brother-in-law does it. Turns up by himself. He's trying to control the scene. He's trying to get people out of the way. He's trying to do all of this stuff with the casualty. And he's on his own. Yeah, that's it.
I just generally don't think, especially when you hear some of the arguments against it, of, you know, why do they need us? Why not just put more money into the NHS or whatever. I don't think people realise it's at a minimum, it's kind of a 4-person job if someone's having a cardiac arrest. Ideally 6.
Well, that's the pit stop analogy. Do you see that one in the presentations, where you position yourself around the body? One at the head,
you kind of
in between the knees. One's there doing that. One's checking stats and taking records. And then the other person is getting the BVM ready, getting the intubation ready, getting everything else ready. It is a 4-person job. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
To be done well, to have the most optimum outcome for that patient.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
It just turns out that he was a paramedic as well, her son. So that's why we talk quite openly about it, and he'd be very supportive, I think, of me talking about it and her recovery as well, to have to come away from effectively being dead to them being walking around alive and healthy, had a pacemaker installed, and she's back on a riding around town on a bike not long afterwards, and who could argue against that?
Yeah.
Of doing it. there are downsides for sure, which
we'll be out all night
for a year. I think we did it for 10 months. No, I'd say like genuinely like down, especially if you're doing it in the area that you live. Well, that's one of the examples, isn't it? Of like, yeah, we brought her back and she made a great recovery. Could have easily gone the other way, and you're working on people that you might know, or
but that's the job anyway.
Friends we do that anyway. It is the job. It is the job. And I think that's just the retain system in general. If you're or if you do the whole time where you live as well, you're going to build up a mental map of. I always talk about Eddie Wing, who is the retired watch manager from Biggleswade, who was there for 42 years, and this guy worked at the station, and he always, whenever we were driving back or driving around or coming back, he'd be like, "Oh, this is where that happened. This is where that happened," and he must have so many memories of good and bad, like a lot of bad stuff, where you'll just be walking around and that's where that happened. So
is it bad stuff?
That's a downside of co-res.
It is bad stuff.
It's life building stuff.
We had Gerard Devine. He's a Scottish firefighter on the podcast recently, and he's writes a lot of poetry. So when this episode comes out, it'll probably come out around Gerard's, because it's along the same lines of creativity. And he's written a bunch of poems about places that he's been, places that he's responded to, because locations hold a story, don't they? They're like they have character in themselves. They have echoes of what's happened there. Sometimes when you go into a building and it feels eerie, or if you were to visit a concentration camp or a place where you go to a slaughterhouse, when I go to my local train station, I look down the tracks and I see the place where the person jumped off the bridge, and landed on the tracks and missed the train, but still wasn't very well. And about 150 meters away from my old house was a tree where this young lad had hung themselves when I was on call firefighter there as well. And there's all of these areas that have those stories. Around my area is a rural area, and there's a lot of fast roads. And a number of jobs that I was in charge of, where crashes on this corner, crashes on that corner. That's where a Lithuanian guy was driving on the wrong side of the road and went straight into a lorry. All of this stuff emanates in your mind. But I always think about the fire and rescue service and any emergency services. I'm like, you don't wish this stuff upon people, but it's going to happen anyway. It's human error. When you see, it's the funny bit, not funny, but like when you say to someone, "Oh, it was a good job," and they're not in the service, or they're not in the emergency services, and they go, "Oh, really great, fantastic. What was it?" And you go, 3 people died, and the house next door also, we lost that one as well, but we got the dog out, and they're like, "How is that a good job? 3 people died," and you're like, "Yeah, but it was a good job. We worked really well together. Those people were probably dead before we got there." These things are going to happen. I think of it the same with international search and rescue. I think it's a privilege to have the skill sets to be able to be of some benefit when these things are happening, because they're going to happen anyway. You're not creating them. It's not like war sometimes. I think that's slightly different, because the fact that we all arm ourselves and then seek this provocative way of communicating and land and resources and stuff like that. We create wars. We don't create national disasters. We don't create a lot of the accidents and incidents that we attend. But it's really nice to have a skill set so that when that stuff does happen, you're the person that they call upon, you and many others, to bring your skill sets to the forefront to create calm out of chaos.
I agree. Especially like the word privileged, because that's what I was thinking of as well. But it's empowering, right?
Yeah.
It's empowering to think I'm a person, kind of what I was going back to saying about the first aid earlier. I'm a person who's equipped to deal with this situation, and I know that I can. And there's not many other people that will be able to do this, like as well as myself and the team that I'm in can do that. I think
And let's get a reality
it's
check.
massively empowering.
It is. You are volunteering for this. It's not national service. If you don't want to do it, don't do it.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have sympathy for people that work in the front line and military and stuff like that. But if you're going to moan about getting shot at, don't join the army, because you might spend 10 years not getting shot at. But if we do have a war, you're going to be going in. And I say that with absolute respect, and I'm not trying to belittle that, but it's the same for us or the police or anything like that. If there's a fire, they are expecting Ryan to go in. If there's an armed person causing some issues at the local train station, I'm going to expect Janice, the police officer, to get involved, because that's your job. Yeah. And you've got powers and training and all sorts to do that. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But again, it's kind of why we created the podcast, because I want us to recognise the incredibly valuable work that a lot of these people do. Because it's hard. I think the average length of career for paramedics is something like 5 years at the minute, because people just don't want to join. I've no idea how the police recruit, because so many people seem to hate the police. I love the police. They're great. I want to always be there when I need them. And I'm always very respectful, and I'm quite old school. I'll call officer sir and mom and stuff like that. But I imagine it's hard for them to recruit.
The ambulance service is just run ragged at the moment.
It's crazy, isn't it, mate?
It's just pretty much as simple as that. There's too much to do and not enough of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I found the secondment so, again, a privilege to take part in that during COVID. And it was just, I kind of knew what the situation was anyway, but it was incredibly enlightening to just, you can know about something, but then when you're actually faced with the reality of like, oh, so every shift you're supposed to have a 45-minute break, but you only get half an hour.
Yeah,
tops.
but don't they get 15 quid
really,
or 20
that
quid for
half an
missing
hour,
the lunch as well? I think they make sure they get that every shift.
But you can be interrupted for, if they put out a Cat 1, you can respond to that. If there's no one, if basically they've got no one to deal with it, they'll put it out to people who are supposed to be in their break.
Yeah.
And quite often your 12-hour shift gets extended to 13 or 14 because you're stuck at hospital or whatever.
What do you think about the Police and Crimes Commissioner stuff taking over services? That's where I think if we don't sort ourselves out, that will be what will happen. They'll just take us over.
Yeah, it's worrying for sure. For me, it goes back to what I was saying about the job that I was doing before I joined, and how I struggle with inefficiencies, which makes it sound like I'm a workaholic or something, which I'm definitely not. One of the laziest people in the fire service, probably. Again, that self-deprecating comedy, but from day one, it always disturbed me a bit how brigades are so insular, and how each brigade has its own different rules and different policies and different systems, and this brigade will do high rise this way, and there's another one doing it slightly differently or quite differently, and then there's different breathing apparatus sets, and you're on the border and you work with the other station just over the other border, but when you get to a job you can't use the same systems because they've got a different brand to you.
That bit
you're like,
makes
really?
sense
this
to
is
me
how
now.
everything works.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't justify it, but it makes
Still not
sense to
clicked for
me. Because 40% of most fire services money comes from local business, and the other 40% comes from taxpayers, and then 20% comes from local government. I think that's how it works for most. So if you are a higher business rate and you have more higher taxpayers, your service has more money. So we might want to buy the brand new MSA collective Gucci sets because we've got more money and we want our firefighters to be protected the best. We want them to know where they are all the time and everything like that. But the service across the border haven't got the same amount of money, but they might still be just as big as we are. They might have 800 staff.
Does that not just encourage inequality, though, throughout the UK? Of one area is going to have a better system or a better service than the other, because Well, I would assume, based on what you've just said, that the South is going to have more money than the North, than the Northern brigades, because of stereotypically, I imagine there's more money like around London and spreading out, and that would imply to me that the brigades further up north, or just in more impoverished areas, maybe not necessarily up north or wherever, are going to have less money to spend.
Yeah,
so
they do.
It always,
you can see it. It's all on
a
a scoring system. You can see it. It's out there.
It never made sense to me why it's not a national system, but then and how every chief has their own, every brigade has their own agenda and doing things slightly differently in a different way.
Well, this is the irony. I mean, firefighters
there doesn't seem to be
same.
much conversation between them either.
No, firefighters get paid the same across the UK, but when you get past area manager, everything gets different. So chief fire officer's pay is very different across different services across the UK. You know, something like 20-30 grand swing in some places because they manage bigger budgets, they manage bigger services. But also, I don't know, I agree with you, but I also understand why it's that way, because if you choose to move and live in Oxfordshire or London or Essex or wherever because you want a nicer state of life, you want nicer streets and houses and blah blah blah, and you pay higher taxes, you want better, god damn it, I want a good fire and rescue service, I want more police officers on the beat. If I have an issue, I want paramedics showing up in 10 minutes because I pay more tax than you do. So I don't know. It's very difficult because then there is much more of an elitist divide across the UK, and it's the rich get richer, poor get poorer, because the poor have less resources, worse schools, less care, and they spiral further down in their socioeconomic slide. And the rich, they just live a better quality of life. It is very, very difficult. And fire and rescue services sit in the quagmire of that challenge. Don't know. Much more people, much more intelligent than me, I'm sure, are trying to solve that challenge. But that's why we all have different equipment. Doesn't inherently justify us having different procedures, because the equipment shouldn't really limit your procedures too much. And people will say, oh, because of the speed. No, if you just slow down for a minute and really break it down, how we approach a high-rise, assuming everyone has an aerial ladder platform or a TL or whatever, the tactics could probably be the same. There's no reason they shouldn't be. But yeah, it is very strange. In other news, this episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the centre of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. You can view battery life, air pressure and estimated time remaining either independently on the M1 itself or from the Luna connected device screen. Also, still with the air status, alarm information, search status, and all of this provided to the incident command for confident decision making during the scene. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. One of the key parts of the Luna is their FAST system, the Firefighting Assisting Search Technology. This combines directional and distance information with thermal imaging to help find separated teammates and decrease response time. It actually connects you to the other crews in the vicinity for a unified search during the time of mutual aid by instantly notifying the network of Luna devices when there is a downed crew member, allowing for a prompt search and rescue. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. It enables you to see the exact location of your firefighters on the scene. And it doesn't require you to be sat on the station. The MSA Hub then provides a wireless gateway straight to the cloud, enabling wireless on-scene data for local and remote incident command for additional eyes on the scene. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity. MSA is dedicated to increasing safety in the fire service through technological advancements. Various feature enhancements, new products, partnerships, and integrations will provide additional capabilities readily accessible by products, software, and services in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show. Talk to me more about efficiencies and how because efficiency is smart laziness. It's just being efficient with your energy.
Yeah.
Talk to me about why that was so triggering for you.
Yeah, just from a logical standpoint, I suppose it's just always been a thing for me of like how can we do this better, which I suppose is a reason to go for promotion, isn't it? As if you think like maybe there's a way that
throw your name in the
do
hat.
this better,
You want to try and change it?
It'll be more efficient.
Get in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like be the change. So
I've got it tattooed on this wrist. It says "Be the difference" on my thumb. Yeah, nice. I'm sad like that. I have stupid quotes tattooed on myself. People think they're written on there as a joke. It's actually a tattoo.
So that's the main reason for me is. So
how soon did you want to go for promotion?
See things moving forwards. I'm currently a crew commander, and at the moment, or a crew manager, just one step up.
How early on did you choose to do that?
I can see myself going higher. That happened in late 2019, and I only went full time in 2017. I had 3 years on the part time before that, so quite early, really.
Why'd you do it?
To make that jump? Certainly very early in a lot of people's eyes in the brigade and the people that I was working with. So that was a little bit of a challenge, and I suppose that basically I thought I could do it. Maybe that was a healthy or unhealthy ego. I certainly thought there's, well, if this person's doing it, I feel like I have the same skill sets as them. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit better in some places, maybe not as good in others, but I thought I was capable of doing it. I had a lot of encouragement from others who were like, yeah, you could definitely do this, like who gave me a lot of support and assistance and just confidence, really, to go, you can do this. You've got what it takes to do that. Mm-hmm. So you should go for it. I've had people say like, you'll be a watch manager within 10 years and stuff like that. But
10 years, I should pretty well hope so in this day and age.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because with the greatest of respect, control the controllables. We're hemorrhaging skills. People are retiring so much from the fire and rescue service. So we're at that point in the generational cycle that if you don't go, if men and women who have the skill sets, who have the humility, who have the emotional intelligence, self-awareness, good assertiveness, command presence, if they don't go for it, then those less qualified in their personal characteristics will go for it, and we'll all be sat here moaning about them because someone that's emotionally numb and just a communication embarrassment has gone for promotion and got the job because no one else went for it. You know what I mean? So I think people like you should be going for it, because people that are reticent to go for it are usually the good ones to go for it. Because some people are just overly confident, barreling away forward. I mean, they use the excuse.
There were
that
people
don't
who
like
literally said that to me as well. They said, "You should go for it. You've got what it takes."
Yeah.
I wish I had gone for it earlier, and I hadn't listened to the people saying, "Oh, you want to have 10 years, 15 years experience before you think about promotion."
That's complete, absolute rubbish. People that you know when you go on a course and they go, "Let's do a round circle. Ryan, just give us a little bit." Who you are, where you from, how long you've been in service. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm from Shire, and I've been in service for 15 years. Who cares how long you have been in the service? What is that supposed to mean? You could have done 15 years at the arse end of nowhere, going on one call a month, yeah? And you've been on the same station, on the same watch, yeah? You've not got 15 years of experience. You've got 1 year, 15 times, yeah? You've not done lateral development. You've not transferred round. You've not moved around the service. You've not been developing yourself and going on courses and things like that. It's such a frustrating, arbitrary metric that really grinds me. You know, people say, "Tell us about yourself, Pete." I was like, "I'm Pete Wakefield. I've got a wife. I've got 3 kids. I like doing physical exercise. I like talking with people. I do a bit of a podcast thing." And then they go, "Oh, that's interesting." And this is after everyone has already gone, "I'm Ryan. I've been in the service for 13 years, and I'm an incident commander, and I've got I've got a TAC vent instructor's course. Who cares?
I did this Jessup course recently where it was almost people on it going around doing the icebreaker questions at the beginning, literally what you just did. It was like they were too embarrassed of judgment, of like, well, I'm not going to say anything to stand out. People in the fire service hate to stand out, right? They hate to, like, this is me and this is what I'm about and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
They'll never do that. I don't know why. They're just, I think it's like this
No, they will.
conformity and
because you do
risk
it
of,
and I do it. But
well,
they're right.
yeah,
Most
yeah,
don't.
I mean,
and I'm not saying
we're
what
trying
we do
to-
is the
trying
right
to change
thing to do.
things, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think like me, you're you're obviously a talker because you're doing a podcast, but you're being open about how you think and feel about stuff, and that doesn't come naturally to, or it's the culture. People have been indoctrinated into it not coming naturally to them in the fire service.
So just the fire service,
wanna
you get
keep all their
conditioned to it in
personality
school.
inside.
You know, school says,
Well,
sit in
yeah,
your seat,
yeah, of course,
don't
yeah.
talk to the person next to you, don't copy their work, and stay inside the lines. You know, why would you not copy someone else's work? That's really efficient. That's what businesses do. Yeah, why? You know,
That's what I used to do.
it's a smart thing to do. Let me get the shortcut, ask you what you did, and then improve upon it. Yeah, and then learn from it and go forwards. Why would I not talk to my friend next to me? It's a really smart move. They might know more than I might know. You know, the audacity of it. Why should we stick in silos? This is just, I just think I'm talking into the wind sometimes. But the fact that the podcast has gained such popularity would suggest to me that I'm not talking into the wind. But on a micro scale, I do feel like I'm talking into the wind. You know when it was a quote from one of Will Smith's films. I think it was I, Robot or something like that. And he was like, "Does thinking you're the last sane person on the planet make you crazy?" And sometimes you sit in a room full of people at the fire service, and I'm like, "Why are we doing that?" And they're like, "This is Pete Wakefield, doesn't know what he's on about again." And I'm like, "Do you know, right? You there? What does it mean?" Well, it's standard acronym, isn't it? It's what does it mean? You don't know, do you? No. Does anybody else know? No. So what are we doing? What on earth are we doing in this meeting? No one knows what we're going to take away from this because we're all too polite to say no one knows what we're going on about. So why don't we just stop and recycle back to something where let's devolve this conversation to the lowest level of common understanding, and then we'll progress from there again. Because I've got no idea what you're going on about. And by the look of the faces around me, neither does anybody else. They just daren't say anything. And I just
That's
think,
reassuring to know that you were having the same.
for God's
experiences
sake,
that
what
I
are we
am.
doing? It's just ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when you speak to retired people, they agree with you. And that's what's frustrating. That's my one indicator of hope. Because the people retiring at Chief Fire Officer level go, I wish I'd have asked more questions sometimes because most of it went over my head. And, I don't really know. And I'm like, and you were in charge. You know, I mean, of course they do know what's going on. They're very intelligent people. They're well qualified. They're well connected. But look, come on. Let's just, sorry, you get off my little soapbox. But
We're all human at the end of the day, aren't we?
Oh, of course we are.
So much information that we're all trying to assimilate, like to expect to be good at everything. Which is why. Do
you think social media has compounded that as well, though? Because like you're expected to be the best CrossFit athlete and an amazing podcaster, and also you're going to be a sex god to your partner, and also you're going to be a consummate professional, and you're going to be the best friend in the world, and you're going to be the best mum in the world as well, and the best dad, and you're going to be in touch with nature, and you meditate every day as well. You can't do all of that stuff and pretend to be people. That's a life commitment to do any one of those things.
It's too much. It's
too much. And you're also going to be a really successful musician. Oh, okay, as well as everything else. It's crazy.
Well, for me, music is just a fun outlet. It's just creativity. I have upped the game a little bit. I tried to take it a little bit more seriously. I would not even seriously, but I've just tried to do what we're doing. Try to make it good, and fully realised. That's the phrase I want to use.
Fully
I've tried
realised.
to make it fully realised.
Why? Why at this
take it to
age?
fruition.
And how?
Oh, well, at this age, I'm definitely a late bloomer because, like I said, I only joined the fire service when I was 27. So, but I think all that experience of doing mundane jobs, because the lorry one that I talked about earlier, that was okay. It wasn't for me, but it was okay. I did far worse, more mundane stuff before that, and I think when I joined the fire service or just before that, I sort of was on the verge of having not a breakdown, but okay, I realised that I am deeply unhappy at the moment, and I need to quit my job and reset. And I'm not going to put any pressure on myself. I'm just going to stop and work out what it is that I want to do, because I'm just miserable. I've been doing jobs that are not fun, not really growing or benefiting me in any way, and I can't see myself doing them in the future. So I need to stop and work out what it is that I want to do. And then I was also doing the music the whole time. Like I've been doing music or making music in some way, playing guitar since I was like a teenager, probably about 16 is when I first started. So
why didn't you go full elbow deep into that at that age? Why did you not go down to London and start busking?
Not good enough, basically. Like I'm certainly not a natural. Well, for example, like I can't sing. So if I could sing, it would be a different story. I would say like.
What makes you think you can't sing? Everybody can sing. The guy that sings "You scumbag, you maggot, you sleep." Who's that song? You cheap, lousy faggot. That song.
Oh, the
Irish
chap
guy
from the Pogues. I do agree with you to a certain extent because
great song.
You know,
but you heard him in a pub. He's like just a drunk guy.
Yeah, but it's the character, right? The character in his voice.
It's congruence. So, does it match the person? Do you know what I mean? Can I see the voice coming out of that human being? So you've got a nice voice. You've got a nice voice as you're talking to me now. It's got nice timbre. It's got nice, variation. It's not monotonous, not monotone. It's a lovely voice.
I've amped it up a little bit. This is what I would call my radio or TV podcast voice.
Is it?
Because if I
I don't think I talk any differently.
Because once I'm in the mode, it's just like a little switch. So it's a little switch that I flip. I'm not. It's not even that conscious anymore. But if I was to talk in what I call my lazy voice, it's more along these lines. It's even lower than this. It's low energy, and it does go into that monotone range.
Well, yeah, but that's based on your energy and your mood, isn't it?
So I have to take it up a little bit, and I think just having my nan is the only thing that changed that, because as she started to get older and her hearing got worse, she just could not understand me. So then I was like, "Oh, I'll talk a little bit higher for you, Nan, and then you can understand me, can't you, Nan?" And she's like, "Yeah, I can hear you now. You're in my hearing aid frequencies." I
was always taught early on. I forget who taught it to me, but there's a great video as well by Jules. Somebody does a TED talk, and it's around your voice is an instrument, even as you talk. And I do verbal warm-ups and stuff when I remember. Didn't do one today. But you can think about how you're using your voice to make the stuff you're saying interesting. Jumping between things, using pauses in the right places and using intonation and volume and, exaggerating in speed and all this sort of stuff to bring life to the words that are coming out of your mouth, being able to move people with words. Great orators, they're not by accident. Most of them have really worked on it.
Absolutely. It comes with practice as well, doesn't it?
Of course
practice and rehearsal and putting the time in. You alluded or you mentioned Dana White earlier, so I assume you watch a little bit of mixed martial arts.
Yep.
And Bruce Buffer, the man that does the introductions to the fights, mostly, what a voice! Just the incredible voice, and that must have come over time of his whole. It's almost like a trademarked spiel, isn't it? It's I don't even know if I can say it because it's probably trademarked, but his introduction to the fights, right? Yeah. That didn't just come like instant. That's hours of practice and getting better, and that'll be him analysing his performance. I would think, didn't quite sound quite good that time, so I'll work on it for next time. I'll be a bit more mindful. And again, like you said, putting the pauses in, timing, accentuating certain words.
It's an instrument, learn to use it. And I think about that with incident command. Let's take it back to that aspect. your command presence, your ability to switch and, become more assertive, more direct. Not rude, but and I think people struggle with that, actually. People struggle with asserting themselves and feeling like they're being rude when actually you need to be worth listening to. That's the difference.
I don't mind. I always apologise afterwards to whether it's members of the public. I'll be afterwards. I'll be sorry if I was a little bit blunt. I just needed to get the information out there.
Yeah.
Just needed to find out. And they're like, I think if anything, they appreciate it because if you exude in that confidence and directness, they're like, whoa, like they know what they're doing is what it says. And it almost calms them down as well. It focuses them. So if you're trying to get precise information of someone, you don't want to pander to them. You'll just be, calm down. I need to know this. I need to know it now. What about this? And they're like, it sort of stuns them into just giving you what you need to know at the time.
Today's podcast is powered by our partner Lifelines and their revolutionary approach to functional hydration. Just like in firefighting, water is essential for body function, but studies show more than 80% of firefighters are dehydrated. A 25-year study findings from the National Institute of Health showed poor hydration to be linked to early aging and chronic disease, and even mild dehydration results in significant negative impact outcomes including headaches, exhaustion, rapid pulse, irritability, and poor cognitive function. A study conducted by Yale University showed that participants who were just 1% dehydrated had a 12% increase in errors when performing tasks that required cognitive flexibility. In addition, dehydration is shown to worsen mood and attitude, contribute to confusion and poor decision making, and negatively affect memory and judgment. In other words, you really don't want your incident commander, firefighter, or for that matter any first responder on a critical scene to be even slightly dehydrated. Mild dehydration occurs when a person is just 1.5% dehydrated, a condition that does not even trigger the thirst response in most people. So just imagine how quickly a firefighter or any first responder can and does become dehydrated in their day-to-day duties, which is why I address my hydration first thing every day with Lifelines. Go into the notes for this episode and specifically check out Lifelines Hydro Fuel and Hydro OG by clicking in the notes for the podcast for a clean energy solution designed for those who demand more from their day. Now back to the show. Talk to me about Habilis, and you mentioned before we came on the podcast about how being a band taught you about teamwork.
Yes, I think most people, especially fire service folks or emergency services, might sort of like have this idea of being in a band. It's all just fun, isn't it? Like you make music, you go out, you play your shows. It's all just fun. It's all a good time, easy going. But there's an incredible amount of hard work that goes into everything you do, and especially I feel like there's an added element if you're doing your own songs as well. So if you're doing your own material that people don't know, trying to get people to listen to it is nigh on impossible. I've gone through the experience of being in bands for years, and especially as you get older. So I don't know how old you are. I'm 37 now.
I'm 33.
Your time shrinks. It just goes down and down and down, doesn't it? And you can imagine by my age, if you still want to do music or creativity in a group with people that are the same age as you, everyone's got kids. Mm-hmm. So all that stuff, which was still hard work, but easier when you were young because people didn't have kids. They maybe had jobs that they weren't too serious about, that they were maybe doing part-time or very flexible. Okay, the main thing in our life is the fun thing, which is making music.
I always think life without kids is like life on easy mode.
Yeah.
Not that having kids is really hard.
You can do.
But when people that don't have kids tell you they're really busy and tell you they haven't got time for this or they're struggling for that, and I'm like, what are you on about? You must be messing about with so much of your time.
Yeah.
You must have just have acres and acres of time, where you're just messing about. And also, I think it calls your, I try and swear less on the podcast, but it's hard not to sometimes. It calls your bullshit to the fore, because it's like, when it's just you on your own, or you and your partner, and you're saying, oh yeah, I'm really into music and I really want to do this sort of stuff. Sometimes it might just be BS. You're just lying to yourself, you're lying to them, you're never really going to do it, But when you say it to a kid, your own child, you're like, I found it impossible to lie to my daughter, which helped me a lot. Stop taking drugs, for first and foremost, allowed me to do some of the things that I kept saying I was going to do. Having businesses, doing this podcast, doing lots of stuff. Because I always say kids don't learn, they absorb. They see what you're doing. They see how you're living. They see the incongruence of your behaviors versus what you say and what you espouse and what you preach versus how you actually live. Yeah? And I think, I really do think, and it sounds so disrespectful to people without children, but it's like, it's life on easy mode. It really is. You less accountability. And also, you're only ever thinking about yourself. Everything you do or everything I do is like, what's happening with the kids? Are they this? Are they that? If we go in here, it's an extra person to pay for. They come first. Not always they come first, but like, it's every thought. The echo of every thought is the kid. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen with them? And what am I going to do with them at the time? Do you know what I mean? And I think it forces you to get more serious about the stuff that you keep talking about. What out of that stuff you're actually going to do. So yeah, as people get older and you want to keep doing a band, I would like to think, and please educate me, people would take it more seriously if they were going to do it, because their personal time shrinks dramatically. So how they choose to spend it, I imagine they're not interested in just sitting in a garage and messing about. What are we actually doing here, Ryan? What is this towards?
So I would say it's very difficult. I'm in the easy street game, as you would say. No kids. Yeah. So for me, I do have a lot of free time. I admit that.
Acres.
Got no problem with admitting it either. Yeah, loads of free time. And I think about kids a lot, or having kids. I think about having kids. And
I was going to say, we'll correct that one.
It's come close a few times with different girlfriends or partners in the past.
Yeah.
And by this point, a lot of people that I've done music with, or it just becomes the window is so small to be involved with something creative or doing what like your passion is, aside from your job, looking after kids, or all the other things in life that get in the way. So what I've done is just try and make it as easy as possible for myself and for anyone involved in the project, because it's not really a band. There are people that are consistently involved in the music that we make. There's probably about between 10 and 20 guys. We'd like a few ladies to be consistently like doing some singing, but it's basically people that jump in and out of different songs. And to make it easier, we've got our own studio, which is where I am at the moment. That's at the back of my house. We've got everything that we need to record, so there's no cost to anyone else. It's not really any cost to me at this point, because the studio was something that I didn't. It's called Sloth Collective Studios, Sloth, because I like sloths, but also I relate to them. It's very, very slow moving, so the studio was pretty much being built and got finished completely, like over a 10-year process of working different jobs, running out of money, then getting the money, then building a bit more, changing job, different bands. We're practicing in here now, so we can't carry on building it, that type of thing. Not knowing what I'm doing. Okay, yeah, it's not really soundproof actually, is it? Nah. Okay, let's tear that wall down and actually do it properly. So now that we've got the studio and we've got decent equipment, people can just pop in and add a little bit, contribute to a song, and then leave. So this whole mentality and approach to creativity came from when I was younger. I think like the last proper gig that I played at a music venue in Bedford, which is a fantastic venue called Esquires. And we got to support these local independent venues who are really struggling with recently. But so the last time I played there with a band where we were doing our own music, we had probably rehearsed our songs that we've written ourselves for about, I reckon something like 10 hours in total, just for this one show. So we got the show coming up, practice relentlessly, and then you play the show and no one's there because they're going to see a band that they don't really know, and the promoter's not really promoted in any way, so it's just a complete waste of time almost, other than the satisfaction of going, and I still have this satisfaction of we played really well, it was really good, it's a shame there was no one there to see it. So after those experiences of, you can be in a band doing your own stuff, or a function band or a covers band, you're always going to have good performances. You're probably going to have, if you're doing your own stuff, you're probably going to have more negative experiences than you are positive, or like shows where like there wasn't really many people there, or the sound wasn't very good, I couldn't really hear what I was playing, or we messed up this song. So now we're, after watching a few lectures and changing my approach to it, we're doing it all like in the other order. So we're not playing live at all really until the songs are there, they're recorded well, and people can actually hear them before coming to the show. It makes sense to do it that way around, right? So that people can hear you first and then go and see you at the show. So that's the way that we've been doing it. That's the way we've done this song. And the guys, whoever's about and wants to contribute to a song, they can come in and do it. It's really like a small community project of local players. Gavin, the singer on the Rise or Fall song, he lives just down the road from me, so literally like a minute's walk. And the other musicians in the band, there's Ross and Tom, both live in the same town as me, and a couple of others, like a short drive away. But we've not been together practicing the song or rehearsing it. They've just popped in, recorded their bits, and then gone. So my role within the band, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about not really being a particularly good musician, is I've more sort of moved into this producer kind of role of, and I don't know if it's a Dr. Dre quote, or someone describes Dr. Dre, is he knows what sounds good. So I think that's the role that I play in the project, is I'll be listening, that's the bit that we want, that's the bit that sounds amazing, let's focus on that, let's refine that, get that really good, make that the focus. And less is more as well with creativity. I think it's quite easy to, which is like a Rick Rubin mentality, a big time producer. Kanye West quote that I like, he said about Rick Rubin is not a record producer, he's a record reducer. So he takes things out of the song so that you can focus on just like the critical components that are there. And
I think that's a very hard discipline.
That's oh yeah, it can be. It's very, if you're making your own stuff, whatever it is, especially because being in a band and that's what I'll go back to it later in terms of teamwork. It is a strange dynamic because people are playing different things, right? And everyone looks at the singer as being the most important person in the band, or is the lead guitarist the most important person in the band? Is the person that plays bass guitar, myself, are they the least important part of the band because that's like the instrument that's noticed the least? So there's all these egos of, well, I want to play something which stands out in the song. Like I want my part to be important.
I want the guitar solo in it.
It's kind of like I want to be the loudest voice, and I want it to be long. and it's trying to be mature whilst appeasing everyone. Of like, well, we're gonna take that bit out, but don't worry, we'll use it later, or we'll put it in a different song, but it doesn't quite fit because it's clashing with the singing. And really,
I think that's where music and
one or
comedy
two focuses
are different to something like podcasting. Because I heard there's a Jimmy Carr quote recently. I heard him on a podcast, and he said, in comedy, you have to kill a lot of babies. And he said, apparently it's the same in music as well. Something that you have created, nurtured, loved, and then put out there, and people go, oh, that's crap. And you're like, oh, you're joking. I really, really like that. And you've got to be willing to sacrifice your baby, or you still just put it out there and leave it. That's where podcasting, you can scroll through the episodes and go, oh, I'm not listening to that. It looks boring. Or they listen to the first 10 minutes and go, no, it's not for me, that one. And then that's fine. You still just leave it there. No one's going to turn up well, actually, some people do podcast shows, but no one's turning up to see you podcast. So it doesn't matter. They're not coming to see your best hits at a concert. So it's like you're just creating something and you're going to leave it out there forever, and people can revisit it and grows over time. It's a different kind of thing, isn't it? Whereas music and certainly comedy, you've got to get a tight 10. You've got a tight 60 minutes. It's like, don't fill it with rubbish, because even doesn't matter how funny you think that is, either the way you're saying it or what you're doing, it just ain't landing. And I imagine music is probably the same. Something that speaks to you and you're like, oh, you're joking. No one else heard that? Oh, really? You really want to take it out? You just think about it, because I honestly think that's the best bit. And they're like, Ryan, it's crap.
Absolutely. I can really, I would imagine more so in comedy, it's going to, bad joke. Oh, good joke. Bad joke. It's the momentum's gonna be all over the place, isn't it?
Because the audience gets the biggest vote.
You could one bad joke followed by a good joke. The good joke's not going to be as enjoyable because what came before.
Yeah, because you're still going, good. Oh, that was a bit. Oh, right. Well, not sure if this is. You only need a couple on the bounce for people to go, what is this?
Yeah.
Tough.
It's like with albums. I've never done an album before. It's just. Doing this one song has taken, not yet. Maybe it'll be like a compilation and we'll put something together. But I think again, going back to public perception of what being in a band is like, unless you do it, you don't realise just doing this one song has taken so much time to get it to, so much time of when you're working as well, alongside, having kids as well. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about that, but not unfortunately. Unfortunately, you get what I'm saying. Of having to battle between, getting the recording to a really good standard. So it has to be recorded well, and then getting the performance really well, and then mixing it so you can hear everything clearly. You're like, oh, you can't really hear the guitar, or it's got a weird tone. So you know what? We're going to delete it and re-record it. We're going to re-record that bit. It's like, oh well, we already spent 5 hours doing the guitar the other day, and you want to start all over again. So just
do you think that
song,
technology and the way that it's advanced there has changed that? Because I listen to Spotify's a great example of this, because even you related there about making an album. Does anybody make an album anymore? When we move with the times, that conditioning of old style thinking, can you not just create a series of one-off, you know what I mean? Connor Price is one example, and there's many others, just people I listen to on Spotify, and I think they do it almost all themselves. They're not a great guitarist, they're not a great drummer, and they will just steal a bunch of samples, use a bunch of different stuff, create a bit of it, and then they put their own singing over the top of it, and you're like, that's great. Who's who's the country western guy who I've listened to? I think he's fantastic. He's Ain't Got a Dollar or something like that. He's got a couple of really strong songs. Ginger guy, American.
I know who you're talking about. The American guy who people were politicized
or whatever. Yeah,
That's not the one.
but he's great. I really like him, and a lot of that is just him singing with the guitar.
Yeah.
You know, it's the original Ed Sheeran style stuff, obviously with an American working class feel to it, and that's the thing. It's art, isn't it? You know, it's art. It's not an agreeable metric. You know, who runs the 100-meter fastest?
Yeah, it's all subjective. Yeah.
You know, 100-meter fastest it is, Ryan. I won and you didn't. I crossed the line before you did. It's a universal metric. But music is art. So, very difficult, you know. But also, like, the fact that you do it in such a collective manner with so many people, I imagine limits the speed at which... Because I always say, like, if we were all going to go out on a walk together, something subconscious and unspoken will happen. We'll either speed up to the fastest person or we'll all slow down to the slowest person in the group. And that is the pace at which this project will move. And that, in my limited understanding, I don't know about yourself, is the pace at which your project... Because we, like the podcast, we actually started a co-host when we started the podcast. I actually started it with another firefighter. And just challenges in getting together, challenges in scheduling, all of that was just... you know, I don't think it's going to be sustainable for me.
Imagine trying to do that, but with 5-6 people, and then you have to get all your equipment, all your amps, guitars, and musicians. You know, they're not necessarily like the most confident of people. Like they can be a little bit shy, even though they're performers. They can be shy. They can be a bit withdrawn. There can be all sorts of things like anxiety, but then some of them can't drive or don't have a car. So then if you're the one with a car, then all of a sudden you're like the sort of the service picking everyone up, taking someone to a rehearsal room, paying for a rehearsal room. So it's expensive as well being in a band, because unless you're fortunate enough to have your own space, which we've put a lot of money into over the years, like you got to pay for somewhere to use just to play, just to practice.
Does it need to be that good? Because again, this guy from the America, I think that his song that's massive on Spotify, recorded it on his iPhone. I think he did. And that, how much does that annoy people like you? Not like you, but like people who have spent 10 years. Because when we came on the podcast, total transparency, you were like, "Oh, Pete, there's audio here and audio there, and there's a bit of interference." And I'm like, "Tell me what I need to do, Ryan." You know, because I'm not remotely trained in anything. I am self-taught to a very low level, but because of technological advances, so much has been taken off the responsibility of the creator at times, like free platforms like Audacity and the Riverside platform that we're recording on today, cleans up so much of the audio and the muffles and the nastiness and the background noise and everything like that. But that used to be someone's entire job. They're an audio specialist or sound technician or whatever. And now it's like, but like you say, we need to get to a certain place to do it in a really Gucci place with all the Gucci gear. Do you, or are we letting good be the enemy of perfect?
There's certainly a bit of that, but I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about trying to see it through to its maximum potential, see it through to fruition. Like you can have a song. You're not necessarily ever going to be fully satisfied with your painting or your artwork or your song or the way you've told a joke.
Yeah,
it's not ever going to be necessarily like 100% perfect. There'll be times where you're like, that was the gig that I mentioned earlier where we practiced for 9 hours and we performed really well. I'm still really happy with that, even though there was no one there. But that could be a little bit rare. And I think with recording, if you've got your own place, you could go overboard. You could constantly go, that's not good enough, like back to the drawing board.
But that's where things like podcasting is accountable. Like it has to go out on Monday. It's going out on Monday. The train is moving forwards. Yeah. Is it ready? Yeah. Well, sometimes you've got to go with what you got. Okay? It doesn't sound perfect.
That's what we're doing with this song. That's why we put the deadline on it, and now, got to get it done. Like, no more festering, no more procrastination.
It's Parkinson's law, isn't it?
No more, like...
Things will grow into the time at which you give them. You give children an hour to tidy up the garden. It will take an hour and 10 minutes. If you give them 20 minutes to do it, it will also take 20 minutes, and it will probably be just as good. Because they will just move at pace. They might get 70% of the work done in 3 minutes. It's just the rest of it. You know, like I find this with getting to 80% can be quite quick. And the last 20% can take years. And I say this with people with firefighting. Like, you can't complete firefighting. You can get to 80% after 3 or 4 years, maybe. And then you can wait forever trying to go to the specific job or wait until the certain course comes up. You're never going to complete it. Do you know what I mean? But you can wait for so long for all of those marginal gains. But imagine the progress you could have made if you didn't just make good the enemy of great. You know, perfect is an illusion. Because, again, it's all subjective.
I think there was a Freddie Mercury quote where he was sort of... You would think with him, his songs are so amazing at times, especially like the big ones that everyone knows. But he said something along the lines of, they're songs, I release them, and they're kind of out there doing their own thing, and they're there for whatever people want them for. It was very like relaxed. And
but again, you say Freddie Mercury, you don't say Queen.
Wow, I would have assumed that he would. Well, that was just a quote from him. I would have assumed that he would have been very like protective over them. But then, if you actually listen to the albums of Queen, which I'd not really done until recently, I listened to one called News of the World. A lot of it was kind of rubbish. I was like, I've not heard these songs before, and you know, half of them aren't very memorable.
Take me back to perfectionism and how you were able to get to the point where you gave this song a deadline and you were like, it is going out then. Not everyone's going to be happy with it. It's not going to be perfect.
Oh, it definitely isn't perfect. Like there are still bits in it now which I'm like. The other thing is like I'm not a professional at doing any of this. I think it sounds good, and you have to kind of go. I think it sounds good for us, for me. We're not professionals. Some of the guys are like fantastic players, like pros, semi-pros. I'm not a professional producer. You're just doing the best.
Wow.
And
when does someone officially become a professional producer? Is there a certificate you get?
If you've been successful in some way outside of just doing it for yourself.
Define success.
So, wow, it's a tricky one, that isn't it? Yeah, for me, that would be, you've been played on the radio a bit.
Who listens to the radio now?
People are paying to see you, I suppose. If no one's paying to see me play, like I can't go, yeah, I'm a successful musician, can I? I can go,
why not?
I do it.
I mean, these people that are on YouTube and Spotify, I don't think they tour. I don't know if they do gigs. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But you know, you'd see in some of the clips now. Some of the...
I think that's the only way to make money in music at the moment is to not. I mean, for me, that doesn't really bother me because I'm not looking to make money out of doing it. It would be nice.
Why not?
And I do have like a little few bits and pieces going on where I've had a few commissions over the years to like write a piece of music for this, which has been really satisfying for someone to ask you to do that and then for the end result to be good. But I would like to be touring. I would like to do a little bit for it to go side by side with the day job in the fire service would be great to just have a little bit of that experience.
You should do it. So you're the only barrier to it.
Yeah.
You should do some work with the podcast. Yeah. You can tell us how crap we are and why it sounds so rubbish. We try and make it better all the time, but I do all of that.
You're doing a great job.
Because past a certain point, and I don't know again if this is a kid's thing, you care a lot, but you also don't care. Not you, but like me, I'm just like, it is what it is. It is what it is. You know, I wish it was better. I wish it could, I wish I could afford to hire someone to edit it properly. But it is what it is, you know? And these people,
but you get those skills,
your
though,
stories
don't you?
are fantastic.
Like, you're learning as you go.
Yeah.
So, like you're saying, I wish I had this person to do this for me. But then, if you had that, you wouldn't be getting the same benefit out of doing it all yourself, would you? You wouldn't be expanding your skills, and then you know,
you become the bottleneck is the problem.
Well, yeah, potentially, yeah.
Everything has to pass through me, which is not very efficient. But that's a money thing. It's like you need to get money to pay people to do stuff. So we need partners and sponsors and blah, 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 which we've got now, and it's getting bigger and blah, blah, blah. But for me, I've just found getting over myself has been the biggest gift ever. Like, I'm barely even cognizant or conscious about what I'm saying when I'm having these things. It's no different when I turn around and go and talk to someone else in 5 minutes' time. It'll be the exact same thing. I think where it acts as a burden is you start having very deep conversations with people that aren't interested in having deep conversations. If someone's willing to come on a podcast, they're accepting. You're going to be talking for a little while and you're going to ask them some personal questions. Not a lot of people in normal life like doing that, I think.
It can be intimidating, I suppose, for most people, but those are the kind of conversations that I'd like to have all the time, really, with anyone. And I often get told, "Whoa, that got deep, didn't it, all of a sudden?"
Yeah.
Did it? I just thought it was an interesting thing to talk about. I'm forever starting conversations about politics where the people that I'm trying to initiate with are like, "Ooh, like, I don't know about, like, talking about that, like, isn't it going to be a bit awkward?" Just put your stake in the ground. I'm like, no, it's okay to like disagree. Yeah. It's okay to have a different view. Like, otherwise, how's anything ever going to change? Like, if you think you're 100% right about your world view, it's just.
I think people have lost the ability to debate
and detrimental way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like that's definitely linked to social media, and
people think you're having an argument, whereas you're not. You're just having a debate.
Yeah,
and also some people don't fully think through their point. They coddle together a half-efforted opinion that they've just come up with in the last 30 seconds before committing it to being the next hill they're going to die on. Strong opinions loosely held. That's what I'm a big fan of. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm very passionate about the things that I say, but if Ryan can articulate to me why I'm talking out of my arse and he enlightens me with a piece of information, fantastic! That's great! It's really great. But, especially in the emergency services and the fire service specifically, we're so culturally sensitive that passionate conversations is a dangerous landscape.
Yes.
Which is a shame.
We touched on like management earlier, and whatever it is you're talking about, everybody, it would be beneficial to think, I have to accept that there's a possibility that I'm wrong about anything. You know, it could be like your most passionate belief or the thing that you hold dearest, or you're so certain on it. You have to think, I could be wrong on this, or there could be information I haven't heard. I
always say to people, what piece of information could I present to you that would disprove your point? And if they can't give me a piece of information that would disprove that point, then you don't really have an opinion. You have a religious belief, because no matter what I would say to you, you would not disprove your opinion. That's not a logical opinion. That's an illogical, irrational culture. That's a cult belief. You know, that's really difficult with people.
Absolutely, yeah. It's difficult to break through if you get to the point of where, tell me what I can do to or what it would take. What would it take for you to change your view on this, or if you saw this, would you feel differently? And they're like, nope. Did
you hear the joke about the religious man drowning in the ocean?
I haven't.
It's a rubbish joke, but the religious man drowning in the ocean, and someone comes by on a paddle boat, and they're like, "Get in! I'm here to save you," you know. And they said, "No, the Lord will save me." I said, "Okay." So then a massive Coast Guard, that person got back to shore and told the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard went out and got to them and was like, "We're here to save you, sir. You need to get in the boat. You're going to freeze to death out here." He's like, "No, the Lord will save me." And then later on, they send a helicopter out to see if the guy's still around, and he's still there, and they throw a diver in the water and drinks it. No, the Lord will save me. And then the guy dies in the water, and he goes up to heaven and is like, "God, why did you forsake me? Why?" And he says, "For God's sake, man, I sent 2 boats and a helicopter. What else do you want me to do?" Do you know what I mean? It's like some people are just so stoically, and that's not a dig at religious people, which is not my joke either, but it's just like, some people is like, you know, you can't help some people when they're just that blindly assured of something.
Yeah, stubborn, right? And
Yeah.
I think is a fear that if I admit that what you're saying is possible, that's just going to be too big a life change for me
Yeah.
to accept, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's also that, like when you've lived, or like if you're 40 or 50 or 30, however old, that's a long time. If you've had that same view, to then go, oh, like I just don't want to even entertain. I
You've
don't want to
set your
think
life
about
up
what
on
you're
this
saying
blueprint.
because it'll be too big a change to like admit.
How did you navigate being able to put this out on social media? How did your service or brigade react to it? Because there's shots in the video, which again, people can go in the notes for this podcast and they can go and see the video on YouTube. And it is worth seeing because it's quite funny and the music's quite good as well. There's stuff in there about your job. There's stuff, you've filmed some stuff on your fire station. Sticky ground.
Yeah, it was all a bit. So it's interesting that you do think it's sticky ground, and I thought that as well. And it was coming to. So how did it first start? I think I sent a few emails saying this is what I want to do. I want to just film my training for the British Firefighter Challenge, and I've got a friend. Is it all right if he like films me doing a few bits on station? And I kept it quite vague and woolly.
Yeah.
And no one saw anything from it until about a month ago. So I was like, ooh, like, now it's time for the big reveal.
Yeah.
And I asked a few friends, like, do you think, and someone that used to work for the fire service, do you think there's anything in here that could be deemed as bad in any way? Like they're looking at this, they think I'm a firefighter. Is there anything that you see that they will then turn around and go, ooh, like, well, not even the fire service. Do you think there's anything a member of public? Because that's what the fire service is worried about, right? There's a member of public who will be
anybody
outraged
take
by something.
Yeah.
And I still think there's potentially, people say that I overthink things, but there's still stuff in there that you could go, the bloke's acting like an idiot. He's an embarrassment to the fire service, or he's making a mockery of the fire service. I still think there's stuff in there, and I would hope that the brigade or whoever else would go, it's okay, like it's just a bit of fun, like no.
Well, like
no
we don't
harm
do
meant,
that
and it's
on Children for Need, or we don't do that on when people are doing Christmas songs.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
they don't look like complete morons. Yeah, they do, and it's funny, and it's fine.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that will not be the case, that someone will be offended, but I think you could probably do anything and someone will say you look like a Wally on Facebook or whatever.
I want to close, or before we close, I wanted to just recircle back to this aspect of creativity. Why has it helped you? Why is creativity something that benefits you in your day-to-day life? How does it help you approach problems differently? How would you encourage people? Because we both do something in a creative capacity that gives you sort of self-actualization. It gives you control over something in your life. What have been the benefits for creativity for you, and for perhaps anyone that's listening who has that nag, that, really, I wish I would do the thing that I have. I've always wanted to do photography or painting or music or start my own podcast or whatever it might be. How would you sell it to them that it's worth investing time into their creativity?
For me, I get extreme satisfaction from starting off with, it's not even a canvas, right? Because music is just nothing. There's nothing there. So it's not like you even have like a piece of paper that you then draw onto. So you literally have nothing. And then building a composition, some music sounds on top of that, layers, and you can make it as intricate and as detailed as you want, to have like little tiny samples in that you only hear once in the song, giving you that little buzz of, okay, there was nothing before, and now we have minutes or an hour's worth of music. It's tremendously satisfying. It's nothing comparable really to doing anything creative. I think it's the same with any kind of art. There was nothing. Now I've made something.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing it. If other people take any joy out of either looking at it or listening to it or whatever that creative medium is, then that's just extra enjoyment, isn't it? And if you've got that buzz, you said earlier about there not being that many creative people in the fire service, and I would agree to a certain extent.
I think there's a lot of people that don't express their creativity. I think there's a lot of creative people in the fire service, but they don't bring their creativity to work because they are given an indication, they're given a bit of feedback, they have a negative experience that indirectly tells them their creativity is not welcome here.
I think it's hugely beneficial to anyone to do something creative, whatever it is, because along with just making stuff up, like there comes like learning and developing skills, right?
Mate, I've absolutely loved that conversation. Thank you so much. I know we went in a million rabbit holes that we didn't intend to go down.
We did.
But that's always the key for it, mate. What's next for you? We talk about accountability, fighting the Parkinson's law. What are you doing next? What are you working on? What are you fiddling with in the darkness? What's happening in your creative mind?
So musically, we'll have another song. We've got loads. So I said how much effort we put into this one song, but as people have been coming in and out, there have been probably about 15 other songs on the go simultaneously.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you're like, okay, we're trying to get this one song ready. So we will focus just entirely on this song for like a month or two. But other than that, there's always lots of songs going on. So we're going to try and ramp up the output, because we're always working on stuff, but just getting it out there. So we're going to try and get another bunch of songs out this year. So if you're on the internet following and you liked what you've heard so far, following the Habilis stuff is good. I don't know if people are curious why it's called Habilis, but I'll just quickly explain.
Yeah, please.
That's related to. I always thought of myself and the music that me and the people are doing as quite primitive or primal in some way, or just simple, really. So that kind of led me to trying to find a name that suited that. So Habilis is simply named after Homo habilis, which literally translates to handyman. It's like a primitive ape before Homo sapiens emerged. If you check it out on Google, there's some pretty funny images of Homo habilis. And I actually met Homo habilis. I didn't meet them, but I saw them this year in the museum in Nairobi, which
wow.
Homo habilis was discovered in Kenya. And I was like, that's the guy that I named the band over. It's like, there he is. It's like, I've been to Kenya before, and I couldn't believe that I'd never tracked down Homo habilis, and I just stumbled across it by accident on a tour of
I love that.
the museum. So
where's the best place for people to find you? Where's are you going to send me some links? We'll put the links in the notes below this.
Facebook, Instagram. We're kind of trying to do all the stuff really, which again ties into more skills you develop, because if you read anything about putting music out, you got to be. Everyone knows it's all social media these days. Then that's another tool that you have to develop. Better or worse, but I've embraced it. So yeah, we are on Instagram, Spotify. All the music will be out on the 28th of December. It'll be out everywhere, and so you can YouTube, you can Spotify, Facebook, Instagram. I think there's an X Twitter thing, but we're not using that really. But it's there. It will have some stuff on it. And awesome. I think the video is perfect for TikTok actually, so I'm sure bits of it will get chopped up and put on there somehow. I was talking about Homo habilis, and that fits in quite nicely. Maybe we'll talk again in the future about Kenya, because that's why I was in Kenya working with the fire service there and training those guys as part of a volunteer project, which is become a massive part of my life, is doing that. So as much creativity and effort gets put into that, even more so maybe than the music. So,
but it's not a surprise, because people that are getting invited and involved in that sort of stuff, often when you go down the rabbit hole with them, they are also involved in a whole bunch of other random stuff. And it's the same for myself. I get invited to so much random stuff, and the pink firefighters and all the other random things that you end up doing, because you seem to be that person that's happy to step out from the main road and go off track and see what you find. And that's where often the best nuggets lie. You know, they're not on the highway. They're somewhere tucked in the forest.
For me, it's always been very rewarding to do so, whether it's with joining the fire service, working part-time, or just meeting the neighbours, taking out the bins and seeing what comes of that. People should, if I could say one thing, just meet people that you live close to, because you never know what's going to come out of that. People 100%. Don't talk to their neighbours much anymore, do they? They should.
No, 100%. Brother, thanks so much for your time today. I've absolutely loved it. We will catch up again in the new year. Are you competing again in the new year? You're going to do the next rounds? You're going to hit back?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to have to. I sort of went downhill last year, so I got some retribution. Big time retribution coming. You wait for it. I'm coming.
Training's got to start,
getting towards that 3 minutes. I started already, but yeah, I'm gonna ramp it up. I'm gonna take it very seriously this year.
Good man.
For me, anyway. Very seriously for me. I'm still not gonna get anywhere near close to you guys, but
hey man, the best version of you. Your 100% is your 100%.
Yeah.
That's what we're.
That's the message of the video as well. Only competing with yourself.
It's tattooed in the middle of my back. Would you be surprised? Wow. Me versus me. That's the eternal competition. That's always the best part of it. Right, mate. Thank you very much. I love you lots, and I will speak to you soon.
Yep. Take care. All the best.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents that get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you are in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.